So, for a bit of context, this actually been to me back in 2014. It was around the fall of 2014, and I was at this little festival thing that was not far from the town I was living at, well, city. I can't even remember if it was Rounds Ranch or something else, but it was kind of like this little place where it's kind of like a party. Not really like a big party, but it's a festival where they have some booths, some games, places where you could buy stuff, etc. Most of it seemed to be pretty nice, and I pretty much really enjoyed it. However, though, there was really something really odd when I went past one area. It happened to be one of those corn mazes that were held around during in the fall, even before Halloween. There was this one corn maze that was really big, and even though it was not dark out since this was a school field trip I went on, it honestly pretty much had this really black dome that pretty much looked like a tent. They basically said that we could go in there, and it was kind of like a little bit of a haunted corn maze like for Halloween. I know Halloween was maybe a couple weeks at the time when I went there, so it was probably maybe near the beginning of October, and my friend Preston, and along with his girlfriend Morgan, and my other friend, and named Jesse, we all decided to go into this one corn maze. Our teacher basically said we could go whatever event we wanted as long as we were at the mean spot every few hours, just to make sure everybody was okay. Now, after lunch, we went to this really big corn maze, and when we went inside, we all seemed to decide to stick together. However, though, the corn maze seemed to be pretty big, and unfortunately, I got separated from my friends, and I tried calling out to them, thinking that they might still be there. I called them out a few times, hoping and prayed to God that one of them could hear me. However, though, they were calling out asking where I was, and I tried to go towards the direction of their voices. As I was going down, I ended up hearing what sounded like a loud shriek. Honestly, it sounded like a woman, and I honestly turned around and I could see something really messed up. It looked like a woman. Now, the woman ended up looking like she was drunk, and apparently she was freaking out as if she saw some monster or whatever. Honestly, she ended up carrying a knife, and I ended up booking out of that corn maze because since I didn't hear my friends anymore, I could look back to see the woman was chasing me. I went through zigzags all over the corn maze, trying not to get killed or whatever. I eventually got out of the place, and once I did get out of the corn maze, my friends were there, and they said that they didn't see me in there and as they got lost. I asked them if they did see anything, and I told them about the woman. However, as I reported the security guard about it, they ended up looking in the corn maze, but unfortunately they could not find the woman. In fact, the employees that were holding up the corn maze said they didn't even see any woman by my description. What was puzzling was, how did that woman somehow get in the corn maze without anyone noticing her? That really still makes me puzzled to this day. We don't really know what the possibility of what would have happened to me if I stayed in that corn maze any more longer. So this happened back when I was a kid, and honestly, it's not really the type of story that make you jump out of your seat, but this is definitely one story that really stuck with me as a kid. Now, however, though, so basically to give a little bit of a background description, I went to this one place called Chapel Farms, and honestly, as a kid, I used to go and get my pumpkin there, and of course, I went on a school trip at the time. I think I was maybe 6 years old. I honestly cannot remember. I was 6 years old, and that was when my school went there, elementary school. When we were there, we ended up going for a little bit of a tour, ended up checking out all the places, and we went to this one hay bale maze, which was honestly quite fun. However, one of my EAs, which I'll call her by her by her name. I'm not going to give her actual name since I don't really remember, but we'll call her last name Miss Gale. Miss Gale was taking photos of me with the other kids in the place, and took a couple photos of me in the little maze and stuff. Honestly, it was quite fun. As Miss Gale was taking pictures of the other kids, I ended up snacking on some snacks that they had for the kids, such as some cookies and that. The field trip was pretty nice, to be honest. It was honestly one of the best farms I've ever been to. However, as I was back at one of the playgrounds playing around, my teacher was going through her photos with her camera. It was one of those cameras that will allow you to see the photo, almost kind of like a video camera but it was like kind of like a digital camera, if you would picture as that. As my EA teacher was going through the photos, she ended up discovering one photo that honestly was confusing to her. She showed it to me, and honestly, when I looked at it, it looked as if there was some sort of man. This man was dressed what seemed to be like a white robe, and he looked like he was burned by third-degree burns. He didn't look present there, as I didn't see him during the trip. Honestly, my teacher asked me if I actually know this man, and I said no. Honestly, I don't even know what to think since I was that young, but if I had to come to the conclusion of it, I think whatever happened that day when I was on my field trip at school was completely paranormal. I am still not sure about who that man was, or if there was some sort of spirit around. Honestly, this was something I have no idea what this guy was doing, but this honestly makes me wonder to this day. And as an adult, I don't remember too much from it, but that's pretty much all I can remember from being very young. This was during the winter of 2018, and this happened to one of my friends when she went to the winter festival. I can't exactly remember where it was, but she went to this one winter festival back in 2018. I think it was around the time before Christmas, so things were getting pretty busy with everybody all getting ready for the holidays. However, we'll call her by her name Rebecca. Rebecca loved going to these festivals, and she had been going to them ever since she was a kid. She was 30 when she went to the winter festival, since she mostly go to the ones in the fall and in the spring, but she decided to give the winter one a go. It was so pretty to see everything light up, even the trees and fake decorations of lights were around. She honestly couldn't even agree more. It was pretty nice and really cool, so it wasn't too chilly, but that was until the nighttime rose. As the night progressed, it was already around 10 p.m., and it was starting to get cold, so Rebecca decided to head back to her car. However, as she was heading back there, she ended up hearing what seemed like footprints in the snow. She looked around. Since she didn't know where her husband was, she ended up thinking maybe it was him trying to prank and scare her, but she couldn't find him. She could have called out to him to see if he was still there, but he wasn't there. He was nowhere to be seen, in fact, so she was honestly confused as to where he was. However, it wasn't until she turned around to see that there was this figure standing about maybe 15 feet or so away, hiding in the trees and the statues. Honestly, it freaked her out because she didn't even recognize who that man was. Honestly, she ended up pretending she was on a phone call, and honestly, whatever happened was the guy ended up running off. She ended up looking to make sure he was still not there, and thank God he wasn't there anymore. Honestly, she had no idea why that man was walking around like that, but it really freaked her out since she's never seen him before. Whatever happened with him, she has no idea if the police ever caught him or not, and when she did tell her husband about it, her husband had considered maybe getting the authorities involved, but seeing as they didn't know who that man was or if he was still around, they couldn't track him. So as of then, they had to make sure that he didn't even follow them, and thank God he didn't follow her back. Honestly, she didn't even know what that man's intentions were, but they obviously couldn't be good.